what we have described for our enemies in the midst of a war are the outer limits that any American would ever go to in terms of interrogating an al-Qaeda terrorist. That's very valuable information. Now, it doesn't mean we would always go to those outer limits, but it describes the box within which Americans will not go beyond. To me, that's very useful for our enemies, even if, as a policy matter, this president at this time has decided not to use one, any, or all of these techniques. It still reveals those outer limits, and that's very important.
Now, the president says, and his people say, this has basically all been in the press already.
There's a difference. There's a difference of leaks and rumors of this and that, and going out there and defining in an absolutely clear way what the limits are. I mean, if that were the rationale, oh, it's already out there. Anytime there was a leak of classified information, you would seem to argue then that we have to go out there and give the full story. I mean, that doesn't make sense on its face.
Now, President Obama has ordered a review of interrogation techniques beyond the Army Field Manual. Can they find some techniques that meet his standards and that will still be effective in getting the information we need?
I don't know. I mean, it's not an unlimited universe of techniques that we would find acceptable as a people. And what we have practically done is taken this body of techniques off the table even while this study is underway. That was one of the things that I discussed with White House officials. This seems to moot the president's own commission to decide whether or not the techniques of the Army Field Manual are adequate in all cases.
So are you suggesting that we no longer will have, whatever he decides on, the ability to extract the information we need?
I think that teaching our enemies our outer limits, by taking techniques off the table, we have made it more difficult in a whole host of circumstances I can imagine, more difficult for CIA officers to defend the nation. But there's another point, too, that I have to make, and it's just not the tactical effect of this technique or that. It's the broader effect on CIA officers. I mean, if you're a current CIA officer today, in fact, I know this has happened at the agency after the release of these documents. Officers are saying, the things I'm doing now, will this happen to me in 5 years because of the things I am doing now? And the answer they've been given by senior leadership is the only answer possible, which is I can't guarantee you that won't happen, but I do know it won't happen under this president. Now think what that means. The basic foundation of the legitimacy of the agency's action has shifted from some durability of law to a product of the American political process. That puts agency officers in a horrible position. So I think the really dangerous effect of this, Chris, is that you will have agency officers stepping back from the kinds of things that the nation expects them to do. I mean, if you were to go to an agency officer today and say, go do this, and why am I authorized to do this? And I said, well, it's authorized by the president. The Attorney General says it's lawful, and it's been briefed to Congress. That agency officer is going to say, yeah, I know, but I see what's going on here now. Have you run it by the ACLU? What's the New York Times editorial board think? Have you discussed this with any potential presidential candidates? You're going to have this agency on the front line of defending you in this current war, playing back from the line.
Now, is this just you saying this, or is this what you have talked to current CIA officials and operatives who are saying that this is their mindset?
I don't want to betray any particular confidences, but I am confident this is the thought process going on in the agency now.
Not only, as you point out, did the president go against 4 former directors of the CIA, as you point out, he also went against the current CIA Director Leon Panetta. And here's how White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs responded this week to the claims that the release of these documents makes the country less safe. Here it is.
It is the use of those techniques, in the view of the world that have made us less safe.
What does that tell you about President Obama's approach to the war on terror?
It's difficult for me to judge the president, and I don't think I would do that. But Mr. Gibbs' comments bring another reality fully in front of us. It's what I'll call, without meaning any irreverence to anybody, a really inconvenient truth. Most of the people who oppose these techniques want to be able to say, I don't want my nation doing this, which is a purely honorable position, and they didn't work anyway. That back half of the sentence isn't true. The facts of the case are that the use of these techniques against these terrorists made us safer. It really did work. The president's speech, President Bush, in September of '06, outlined how one detainee led to another with the use of these techniques. The honorable position you have to take if you want us not to do this, and believe me, if the nation says don't do it, the CIA won't do it. The honorable position has to be, even though these techniques worked, I don't want you to do that. That takes courage. The other sentence doesn't.
Let me get directly to this, because I think it is one of the key issues. Did these techniques work? In Friday's Wall Street Journal, you and former Attorney General Michael Mukasey wrote an article, and let's put up what you said. You wrote, as late as 2006, fully half of the government's knowledge about the structure and activities of al-Qaeda came from those interrogations. But the New York Times reports that all the information that Abu Zubaydah, the first one who went through all of these techniques, all of the information he gave up came before he was subjected to waterboarding, before he was slapped, before he was slammed against a wall. And it says that after the harsher, enhanced interrogation, he gave up nothing.
I should correct you. Before he was slammed against a false, flexible wall with something wrapped around his neck so that he would not be injured. In September 2006, President Bush gave a speech on the Abu Zubaydah case. He pointed out that Zubaydah gave us nominal information, probably more valuable than he thought. He clammed up. The decision was made to use techniques. After that decision was made and the techniques were used, he gave up more valuable information, including the information that led to the arrest of Ramzi bin al-Shibh. After the New York Times story yesterday, I called a few friends to make sure my memory was correct. And I guess, to quote somebody from your profession, we stand by our story. The critical information we got from Abu Zubaydah came after we began the EITs. And
the EIT?
The enhanced interrogation techniques.
Not before?
No.